And that actually is the FATCA issue. The FATCA debate, it's still ongoing in Parliament. Yesterday, there wasn't any consensus that was come to, unfortunately, and the opposition still pretty much opposed to what's happening. They want to go back to the JSC. Apparently, that's going to be the case. February was supposed to be the deadline that this is passed. But we have Anya Schnoor on the line. She is, of course, the president of the Banking Association of Trinidad and Tobago. So let me say good morning and welcome to Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Schnoor.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning to Ms. Schnoor.
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, unfortunately, if she is on the line, I'm having some problems hearing her this morning. But we are supposed to be speaking with her about the FATCA debate, about the FATCA issue. And it's all basically about what's happening. The opposition basically said that they want to go back to the JSC. They're not in agreement totally with what has actually happened with respect to the JSC. With their comments, they're still saying that there are some issues with respect to the JSC with the law that which it was amended, that there were areas that one of the major objectives of the legislation actually is to provide an avenue for the government to get into people's business. And that's one of the things that the opposition is saying, and to get information of ordinary, harmless, defenseless citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And this has been a stance that they've had since the FATCA debate started, since the FATCA issues began. They're even saying that, you know, there are various countries who have opposed it. That is, of course, true. And they're also saying that they, to get legislation into the citizens' bank accounts, their investments, where they have children studying, how much money you have in account in the U.S., all these things, he said, is what the government wants to use FATCA for. So that is one of the reasons why, according to the change in the legislation that they have had, that they're opposed to basically going through in agreeing with it. So they're saying, the opposition that is, that they will not participate in any process of lawmaking that allows the government access to sensitive financial information of anyone, including members of the opposition and the government. So this is Munilal speaking. He said he described it as a dangerous precedent. And that was a report that the Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi requested certain information from a bank account from a member of Parliament. Let's see if we can get Anya Schnoor on the line again. Good morning, Ms. Schnoor.
Morning. Great to be here.
And unfortunately, no, we still cannot hear her. Good morning, Ms. Schnoor. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we are having some technical issues this morning. Still can't seem to connect with Ms. Schnoor this morning. Of course, she is the president of the Banking Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Would have been able to let us know exactly, you know, what may have happened if this does not go forward and not passed, because the banks basically, if it is passed, they have to set different things in motion by September 30th so that this information is actually taken to the U.S. government, to the IRS, and it's supposed to just affect U.S. citizens. Unfortunately, this is what the opposition says is not the case. I don't know if we can try Ms. Schnoor again to get some more information from her, but that is what's happening so far. Munilal said that there was a tidal wave across the world against the FATCA legislation. He was even adding that former Barbados Prime Minister Owen Arthur, he said that he was expected to be among a group of people at a seminar in New York yesterday, and this was said yesterday, who was discussing the FATCA issue, which he claimed was hurting the Caribbean. Let's try again to see if we've got Ms. Schnoor on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Schnoor. So glad we finally connected this morning.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right. So, I mean, you've heard me talk about it. You've heard what the opposition's been saying. It's the same stance that they've taken from day one, that they are against passing this legislation simply because they think that the government, or the legislation that is being presented by the government, is actually going to give access to Trinidad and Tobago citizens. Do you know anything of that legislation as it wants to be passed by the government? Because it's only supposed to affect U.S. citizens.
And it's great to be here so I can, just clear up any misunderstanding. And I think as the debate went on, other speakers spoke into the night. And I think there is general agreement, even on the opposition side, that the legislation is necessary. It has nothing to do with reporting anything other than the tax information related to U.S. persons only who already have an obligation to file U.S. tax returns. No other information on any other citizen of Trinidad and Tobago will be reported to the BIR. It only affects persons who are U.S. persons who may be resident in Trinidad and Tobago. That's it.
So
the banking association, every bank who is a member of the association understands clearly what is required of FATCA, and that is all we'll be providing to the BIR.
So the opposition is claiming, though, that it is actually going to get into citizens' bank accounts, their investments, where they have children studying, how much money you have in an account in the U.S., various things like that. Now, you can have an account in the U.S. and not necessarily be a U.S. citizen or even hold a green card or anything like that. You can have a U.S. account as well in Trinidad and Tobago and not have that. So what they're saying, and they're still sticking to that, have you been able to see this legislation at all to see if that there is a clause in there that says that? And even if there is that clause in there, will the banks have to give that sort of information to whoever is requesting it, the powers that be that are requesting it?
We have been a part of the conversation around FATCA for 5 years. So yes, we have seen the IJ, we have read the FATCA legislation, we have been involved through the JSC in looking at the Tax Information Exchange Act. There is no provision anywhere on reporting on anybody's accounts outside of Trinidad and Tobago. We do not have access to any information on anybody's accounts if you hold them outside of Trinidad and Tobago. The only information that is going to be reported to the BIR is on accounts that are local in Trinidad and Tobago banks that belong to U.S. persons only, nobody else. No Trinidad and Tobago citizens that may have an account in the U.S., that may have an account in Canada, whoever in the world, wherever in the world. That is the only information we're going to report on. Trinidad and Tobago accounts locally for U.S. persons only, nothing else. Please remember that we're not the only country in the world that has passed FATCA. Hundreds of countries around the world have passed FATCA, including the UK, including Canada, including Germany, including many of our neighbors who were referred to, Jamaica, Barbados, St. Kitts, etc. All of them have already passed FATCA and are already reporting in many cases. We are virtually one of the last countries standing.
Now, I want to ask again, simply because I think the public as well need to be reassured, simply because Mr. Munilal did say that there was a report, he made allegations that the Attorney General, Faris Al-Rawi, requested certain information from a bank account from about a member of Parliament, and he wanted to know on what basis Al-Rawi was allowed to do that. Can that happen? Can someone, for example, in the government or someone requesting information like that, access information from anybody, whether it be a member of Parliament or anyone else? Is that something that is allowed in the banking system?
Of course not. At the end of the day, we are governed by laws. There are very clear laws under our Banking Act, under the Financial Institutions Act, under any form in which persons can request information. And usually that has to come with a court order. So there are requests that come to banks for various things, whether they're cases in the court, whatever it may be. It has to be done in a legal way. That is the only way any bank in Trinidad and Tobago will provide information to anybody. you have to understand the most important thing that as a banker that I am responsible for is the confidentiality and protection of my customers. That's what I get up every morning and think about. How do I protect the institution that pensioners, retirees, all my depositors have come to invest in and rely on? We have to ensure the integrity of the banking system, and that's what we do every single day. So, I've come to believe that things that are written about in newspapers may not always be the truth, and I think we need to make sure that we investigate, find out the details correctly before we repeat them wherever they may be repeated.
Okay, and one final question. It's going back to the JSC for a vote Thursday 23rd. That's when it's going to come back. They said they wanted more time. They thought the JSC was rushed. That's the opposition thought that the JSC was rushed. So they now have Thursday the 23rd when that vote will be taken once again. Remind us again what's going to happen if there is non-compliance with this FATCA bill?
At the end of the day, if we are not in compliance with the FATCA bill, we could be subject, and that's what it says in the FATCA legislation that was passed in the States, banks who bank with us, meaning our correspondent banks in the U.S., will be obligated, if we're not FATCA compliant, to withhold on any U.S. transaction 30% of that transaction. So if we're doing something with our U.S. correspondent bank, we're sending a wire, they may be obligated to hold 30% withholding. There are other consequences that are more longer term in nature, meaning U.S. correspondent banks will begin to view Trinidad and Tobago as a non-compliant jurisdiction. And there were talks about what has occurred in Belize. We bank in Belize. I am a member of the Scotiabank network. We bank in Belize. I can tell you that Belize losing their correspondent banking has affected their economy significantly. Think about not being able to send a wire. Think about not being able to have a U.S. credit card. Think about this. You want to talk about money for your children? Think about not being able to send money to pay for their education. This is what is happening all across Belize. It is real. We've read it in the papers. We're seeing CARICOM fight de-risking of American banks in the region. This is not something that is being made up in Trinidad and Tobago. Every single country in the Caribbean is facing this, and we cannot pretend that we would be immune. So we have to be in compliance with agreements that we as a country knowingly signed. Nobody forced us to agree to the IJ. Nobody said you had to do this. At the end of the day, we made a decision, and that was what we agreed back in 2013. It's now 2017, 4 years later, and we're still arguing about what we did back in 2013.
And
we
just
need
finally,
to move forward. We have to move forward.
Yeah, we do. And just finally, what do you think about the opposition leader writing to President Trump asking whether this is going to be repealed or not, since it was something that was imposed done under President Obama, and Trump was one of those people who was in a sense against it, and now she's asking President Trump whether it's going to stand or whether he's going to repeal this?
At the end of the day, FATCA was not something that was done by executive order by President Obama. It was done and passed by the Congress of the United States. And in 2010, when it was passed, I believe the Republicans had the majority in the House. So it could not have been passed without the support of the opposition party at that point in time. So it is the American law right now. President Trump cannot just by the wave of a wand get rid of an American law. He would have to go back to the Congress, the Senate, to repeal it. That is not something that is going to be done today, this year. I believe President Trump has other priorities. So therefore, American law is American law, and we have to be in compliance with our agreement with the Americans. We signed as a country the IGA. That's something we did. As the law stands today, we have to be in compliance. If 2 years from now, President Trump repeals FATCA, great. We will all rejoice and we don't have to comply. But until that time, we have to be in compliance with our international obligation.
All right. Thank you so much, Anya Schnoor, for speaking with us this morning, clearing some things up, letting us know that no one, unless there's a court order, can get into our bank accounts. So we should feel safe with respect to that. So thank you for clearing certain things up with us. And speaking with us once again on the FATCA debate, Anya Schnoor, President of the Banking Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Have a great day to you, and happy Valentine's Day to you as well.
Thank you. I wish I was talking to you about something else on Valentine's Day.
I know, but hopefully soon.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care.
You too.